Stand up for Jesus. Number 378. Number 378. Stand up for Jesus.
Stand up for Jesus, ye soldiers of the cross. Lift high his royal banner, it must not suffer loss. From victory unto victory, his army shall he lead, till every foe is vanquished, and Christ is Lord indeed. Stand up for Jesus, the trumpet call obey, for to the mighty conflict in this his glorious day. Ye that are men now serve him against a numbered foe. Let courage rise with danger, and strength to strength oppose. Stand up for Jesus, stand in his strength alone. The arm of flesh will fail you, he dare not trust your own. Put on the gospel armor, each piece put on with prayer. Where duty calls or danger, be never wanting there. Stand up for Jesus, the strife will not be long. This day the noise of battle, the next the victor's song. To him that overcometh, a crown of life shall be. He with the King of glory shall reign eternally. Amen. You may be seated.
Judges chapter 8. If you wanted to, just take those right back to the... That's right. Yep. Take care of it right away so I don't have to remember because I'll forget. Judges chapter 8. Judges chapter 8. Gideon's last days. Gideon's last days is what we're going to talk about this evening. And we're going to talk primarily about one facet of leadership that is vital for good biblical leaders. We'll make a few comments before we get to that point. But we're going to start in verse number 22. And in verse 22, we have a reaction to the victory. A reaction to the victory. This joyous celebration. Picture in your mind parades going down the street, women crying, men patting each other on the back. This victorious parade, way better than the city winning the Super Bowl or the World Series. We really have a difficult time picturing these events because the level of crisis that we experience is so different than what they would have experienced in this story or in the Bible times. If our sports team is facing another sports team in the final event and our sports team loses, oh, what a crisis, what a crisis. We're all anticipating the battle, the game, and we're nervous and excited, and we watch the battle, and oh, we feel terrible, or we are exulting because they won. Well, nobody's going to come and burn down our houses unless it's the rioting Democrats. But anyway, sorry, my bad. But nobody's going to come as an invading army depending on the outcome of the contest. No one's going to come and take all of our manufacturing away, or our harvest away, or our children away, or our wives away. They're not going to come and occupy our land and kill all of the boys from 16 to 40 because they're of fighting age. That's not on the line. Just bragging rights are on the line. And just bragging rights being on the line will produce a joyous reaction from the city. Well, look at us, we're and it's kind of funny when they say world champions. You remember the league is just here, so, but whatever. Their rapturous reaction to this contest, but life and death is not on the line. And I'm not trying to belittle or despise the society that we live in, but it's very difficult to really grasp what is happening, the tremendous relief, the joy, the victory that is experienced by these people, so much so. Okay, again, picture in your mind this giant parade, the relief, the gratitude, the love that they have for Gideon, and their response to this is their response is in verse 22. Then the men of Israel, this isn't just one tribe, this is the entire representatives of all the nation, said unto Gideon, rule thou over us, both thou and thy son, and thy son's son also, for thou hast delivered us from the hand of Midian. You've got the lowest of the low in society that they've just gone through. Midian coming and taking all their harvest. Midian causing some severe famine. Midian going up into the mountains and even killing and murdering some of Gideon's own family. So awful time to this. We are free. We are victorious. We are able to shake off the shackles of Midian. We're an independent nation again. Boy, the roller coaster of society. And in the roller coaster of life, I want to make two observations. First, life is still the same as it always has been. If they go through roller coasters of life 4,000 years ago, don't be surprised if you go through roller coasters of life today. Still the same. Ecclesiastes 1, if somebody would read Ecclesiastes 1:9. We sometimes have an idea that the difficulties that I have are worse than anybody else has gone through. That the problems that I face are unique to me, and nobody else has the difficulties I do. It's just not true. Other people have suffered, and I'm not trying to despise or belittle your suffering in any way, but the roller coaster of life has been up and down since Adam was created. And you'll find the roller coaster of life all throughout Scripture, and it's going to be that way until Jesus takes us home. Don't feel overly sorry for yourself, because it goes up and down. Ecclesiastes 1 and verse number 9. Brother Samuel.
The thing that hath been, is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done. There is no good thing under the sun.
There is a certain amount of discouragement or depression that comes with being in the valley, as if God has specially targeted you for discouragement or difficulty or circumstances. You know, if it wasn't for bad luck, you'd have no luck at all. The devil, whatever, that no one can get lower than me. Don't believe that, because lots of people have had difficulty. And again, I'm not belittling your trial, but lots of people have had difficulty. On the flip side, there are some people who think America is the greatest country in the history of the world. Now, let's be careful about that too, because then you can think God loves Americans more than he loves anybody else. I think that Israel under David or Solomon was probably a greater nation, but maybe not. But maybe. And I'm guessing that God still has a very special place in his heart for Israel, and America to Israel, no, I don't think we can compare. Christians were grafted in, America wasn't. So what I really want to get across is that if you're on this roller coaster, don't get stuck on the bottom. And don't get stuck at the top. Just be happy we know who operates the buttons. Because who's in control of the roller coaster? God is. Let's read a couple verses. Daniel 4, 17 and 25. Who can read those? Daniel 4, 17 and 25. Brother Belkey, Daniel 4, 17 and 25. Psalm 75 and 6 and 7. Wait a minute. Like 3 chapters? No, 75, 6 and 7. Psalm 75, 6 and 7. Terry, and then John 19, 11. John 19, 11. John 19, 11. Brother Ezekiel? John 19. Did you raise your hand, or did you just like, okay, I think he just scratched his chin and I got him. God is still in control of the roller coaster. If you don't get anything else out of this message, just remember, God is still in control of the roller coaster. Man, if I was in charge, things would be different. No, if I was in charge, man, I'd have LT have his surgery right tomorrow. I really would. I feel so bad for him. But isn't it an encouragement to know God is still in control? And I can trust him that all things work together for good. I do not know the circumstances and why they happen the way they do. I don't understand why people disappoint us or why they encourage us and why they're a blessing to us. I don't know those circumstances. And we all know the song. I don't know what happened, or I don't know about tomorrow, but I know who holds tomorrow in his hands. Daniel 4, 17 and 25. Mm-hmm.
But they shall drive thee from men, and thy dwelling shall be with the beasts of the field, and they shall make thee to eat grass as oxen, and they shall wet thee with the dew of heaven, and 7 times shall pass over thee. But thou know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whomsoever.
How many are glad that the Most High rules in the kingdom of men? I believe we should vote. I believe we should get involved. I believe we should do all of that stuff. But the ants are just moving the sand around in the hill. We know the elephant. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but boy, the elephant comes along and he rules in the affairs of that jungle. He rules in the affairs that we are involved in. You can trust him. Psalm 75, 6 and 7. Psalm 75, 6 and 7. He putteth them down and setteth them up. John 19:11. John 19:11 is a very curious verse because it could be used as the example of the most vulnerable Jesus was, perhaps only rivaled by the time that he was in the womb with Mary. But here is Jesus, humanly speaking, stripped of his power, stripped of his dignity, stripped of his rights. He's been illegally charged, and he's standing before the symbol of the Roman government. And the reply that Jesus gives in John 19:11, so basically Jesus stands before Pilate completely stripped of all human power, but says, I know God is still in control, and I can trust him. So any situation you find yourself in, you can say God is still in control. So we have Israel on this roller coaster. They've been low and now they're high. And they offer to Gideon the position of king. Now, I think it's the king. I think it's an offer of king. I think it's different than the judge, because go back to our text in Judges 8:22. In Judges 8:22, they say, the reason I think it's different is because in all the cases before this, and I believe the cases after this, I didn't find it exactly, but I'm conjecturing that it's happening in the cases after this, that it is all Israel in this verse, whereas before it was judges over a particular tribe or a particular area, and it wasn't all of them together. So that makes it different. And they use the word rule and not judge. And so, in my opinion, it is them saying, we are going to set you up as sovereign. We're going to set you up as king. Now, I wish they would have put a different subject to that sentence and said, we want God to be our king. But they didn't. They came to Gideon and they said, we want Gideon to be our king. And they really go the full extent of being a king, and they give him unlimited power. They give him power in perpetuity. They don't even say, you be king for as long as you live, and then when you die, we'll reevaluate the situation. They give up all rights, not only right now, but for generations. They say, we want you to be king, and then without even a vote of the people, without any consideration to what we say, we want your son to be king. In fact, we're so confident in this decision that seems pretty rash right now. We're so confident in this decision that we want your son and your son's son to reign over us continually. Now you're talking not just 30 or 40 years. You could be up to 80, 90, perhaps even 100 years of rule that they are giving up. What do you think about that? What do you think about that? How many think that's a wise decision? That's a horrible decision. That's an awful decision. Sometimes people will ignore wisdom simply because of passion or excitement. People will choose leaders with limited information. They will give up freedoms based on very little information, very little evidence. How long have they known Gideon? How long has Gideon been on a national stage? What do you think, Chris? It's hard to know how many days actually, but it's probably less than a month. So you have charisma, because he's sword of the Lord of Gideon. You have leadership, in the sense of how he dealt with Succoth, how he dealt with Penuel, how he dealt with Ephraim, how he dealt with Zebah and Zalmunna, how he dealt with the fleece. So you've got some evidences of good things in him, but it's a very small subset. It's a very small grouping. You know, it's possible for people to be caught up in the charisma of a leader and the talent of a leader and not take time to look at the character of a leader, which can only be revealed over time. And so they're willing to give up much of their own rights and responsibilities based upon the outward instead of waiting to find out about the inward. What are your thoughts on that? Did that somehow happen today with politicians? Yeah, exactly. Yes. How? Yes, ma'am, Janine. Yep. Yep. Why not? Why not? Oh, is that Brother Josh? Have you ever met somebody who you suspect they got to where they are based on charisma and talent and not character? That really it's their talent that carried them, but boy, when you get to know them, when you actually get to spend time with them, that depth of character just isn't there. And people are swept up in what they see and what they think, but they're not talking and they're not looking at the depth of character that they have, their integrity as a person. Has a young girl ever fallen for a guy because he had charisma and talent and she never looked for the character? Have churches even been swept up in a guy who can preach or teach and very talented, and then they find out 3 or 4 years later, wow, there is no character here? What advice would you give to them if you were there at that event? Why would it be important to look at his character? Why would it be important to say, stop? Character, is character more important than talent? Is character more important than charisma? And what should we do to look for that? Brother Samuel? Okay, talent only goes so far. It's the character that carries you. Then why is it our young people desire talent and envy talent and emulate talent and mimic talent? This is what Michael Jordan does, or this is what this guy does, and I'm going to mimic that. Truth is, talent is a whole lot easier than character. So they were talking about, I saw this, I don't remember where I saw it somewhere, but they were talking about Navy SEALs and how they decide who is actually chosen for SEAL team and fill in the blank, SEAL Team 6 or SEAL Team 7, how they decide who that is. And they have a graph on one side, which is the talent of that person. So how well they can shoot, what physical specimen they are, how well they pass the test, and so all the talent that they have. And then they have another side of the graph, which is how hard they work in practice. So in a sense, you've got performance and practice. So performance is the height and practice is the length of their graph. And they said, do you suppose most of the SEALs are high here on this side? So you've got high performance but low practice. And they said, no. You don't have a lot of SEALs who are the sharpshooters, but they don't put a lot of work in. What you actually have is people who are medium performers, but hard workers. Because you don't really want a hard worker who can't shoot. Like, sorry, buddy. You got good character, but I really do need somebody to hit the target. So you do need to have a little bit of ability to do what you're supposed to do. But they said they would far rather have somebody who had character. And you know what the word they used in a secular setting was? Trust. You can't trust the talented person. Now, the person with character who works really hard and he drops his gun, you're like, you do need to have a little bit of ability. But they said they'd much rather have somebody who is medium in talent but a hard worker because they could trust him. They could trust him. Amy. That's true. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So we should honor character to our kids. We should encourage character in our kids. We should try to exemplify character for our kids. We should focus as much as we can on this, not how well they can shoot a basketball necessarily, but how hard they worked in practice. Not necessarily how they played the musical instrument perfectly in a performance, although that is very good, but how often they practice. And you might have to buy stock in the chiropractor because, the music that they keep playing over and over again for the thousandth time gets a little bit old. But what you're doing is you're saying when the child comes home and says, I don't like the sport, I don't like the coach, I don't like the teacher, I don't like this project at school, I don't. You say, get your lazy body in gear because character trumps talent every single time. But I won't make the best grade. I'll not be the captain. I won't sit in first chair in the orchestra. I don't care. Make yourself hard. Make yourself strong. Because character is what will carry you. Now, I'm not trying to at all belittle the Holy Spirit. I'm not trying to belittle at all Jesus Christ and God and the way God deals with us. But wouldn't it be good to give God a nice vessel to use? Instead of something that is broken and he has to constantly help you through limping through life, why not give him a vessel that already has character, given over to him, learns to do what is right regardless of the circumstances, and then can be used of God. Now, I wanted to set all that up to read verse number 23. And Gideon said unto them, I will not rule over you. Neither shall my son rule over you. The Lord shall rule over you. Wow. This has got to be one of the greatest examples of character throughout the Bible. I do think David was a man of character. If you think about David facing Goliath and taking the sling and killing Goliath, I think that battle was won back when he obeyed his father, when he took the cheese for his father, when he left the wagon in charge of somebody else so that they would watch the property, and then he left, when he left the sheep in the hands of a keeper of the sheep, when he fought the lion and the bear. All of that stuff is not in front of a crowd, and he had character to do all those little things right. He made his bed, he tied his shoes, he did his chores, and that helped him to fight Goliath. So I think the battle with Goliath was won way back there. So David is an example of good character. This here is a tremendous example of great character. What do we do when we get all the pieces? What do we do when we get our greatest wish? If you could get your greatest wish today, right now, even now, God knows your greatest wish, right? So it wasn't like God came to you and said, okay, you're going to get your greatest wish, and then you decided. But your greatest wish right now, if it appeared right now, Gideon's greatest wish, in this sense, was for God to rule over those people. I don't know if I'd be embarrassed if I got my greatest wish right now, and you saw it. This is incredible that he said no to people who wanted to give him power, who wanted to, in a sense, give up their freedom to him. This isn't just President of the United States. This is a king who has the power of life and death over people. Again, it's trying to compare us winning the Super Bowl to a pitched battle between Israel and Midian, and who wins is the one who gets to come home and kill all the kids. And I'm not trying to be mean about it or disrespectful, but that's actually what's happening. This is life or death. And when they say, we're giving you the power of the kingdom, he could do anything, say anything, kill anybody. He had sovereign control over these people. And he says, I'm not going to exercise my authority or my position to make you vulnerable, to hurt you in any way. That is incredible. Think about all of these leaders in power, film executives, CEOs of companies, media moguls, and they all seem to be on the liberal side. I'm just saying. Now, conservatives have done it too. There seems like a whole lot of liberals who said, treat women with respect, treat women with respect. All along, they were taking advantage of women. All along. But think about it. It's a position of power taking advantage of somebody who's vulnerable. It's a position of authority taking advantage of somebody who is less, who is weak. And that's what they're doing. They are coming to him in a position of weakness and saying, take advantage of us. And he still says, no. I wonder how many young men keep themselves pure simply because they don't have the opportunity. And I wonder if there are young men who would say, even given the opportunity, I would say no. I will not take advantage of a vulnerable person. I won't do it. That's why child abuse is so bad. That's why rape and all that is so bad. I will not use my authority. I will not use my position to take advantage of another person. I will not grab for my rights. I will not grab for more power. I won't do it. I will keep myself in the position I am kept in, and I will honor and respect you. I will on purpose elevate you. I'll keep us as equals. That is a tremendous asset or principle of leadership. I get it. Leadership is definitely facing Goliath. Absolutely. It is definitely Gideon, the sword of the Lord. Absolutely. But on the flip side, leadership is caring for the vulnerable, caring for the weak. Never using my position for self-advantage. Never. Never using my authority as the husband in the home or the leader of the home to hurt or manipulate. But listen, guys, if you say to your wife, I'm the man of the house and therefore you have to, you're saying you're not. You're saying you're not a good leader. Because Jesus, I'm sure he said his authority. I'm not saying he didn't. Sure, he claimed godship and headship. But he never stamped his foot and said, I'm God, you must obey. He repeatedly said, I'm here as one that serves. I'm here as one that helps. I'm here as one that guides. And you really see this when the follower comes from a place of weakness, comes from a place of vulnerability, comes from a place even of failure or incompleteness, as it were. So he's there, and he sees them, and they're basically telling him, we're weak without you. We can't defeat Midian without you. You're the reason. So we have failed. We're a failure. You're the success. And so for us to be a success, you just have to be king. So let me ask you, as a leader, what do you do with other people's failures? What do I do with other people's failures? Am I gentle? Am I kind? Do I just put that aside and say, no, I'm not going to use that as an advantage? Or do we remember the failure of our spouse and bring it out when we're in a fight? Oh, yeah, you did. Oh, yeah, remember when? Yeah, but I did wrong there, but you did wrong twice. What you do with somebody else's failures tells a lot about my leadership. And a great leader puts that away. And I'm not saying I'm a great leader. I'm saying, boy, we need to learn this. This is such a valuable principle. I said a lot, so I'll be quiet for a little bit. What do you guys think? I threw a lot of stuff out there. Brother Sheik. Yeah. What do you guys think? Anybody? Brother Chris?
There's a saying that I've said and heard a lot in the military is that those who cannot command leadership will demand leadership.
Yeah.
Authority. Those who can't command authority will demand it.
Yeah.
And if they cannot demonstrate that their life is worthy of people submitting and following them, they'll demand leadership. They're weak. They won't see that.
No. Anybody else? There was another person in history that was offered a tremendous amount of authority, and he did not take it. George Washington. So I actually read up on that story, and it's been a little bit sensationalized. At least the story that I found, because the internet doesn't lie, and I found that on the internet. But the story that is kind of bantered around is that the Continental Congress came to him and said, I want you to be king. And he said, no, I'm not going to be king. And according to the research I have done, that didn't happen exactly that way, but it did happen in the principle of the thing. What actually was going on in 1782, a brand new nation, flush with victory, and they are this baby nation trying to find their way. But that baby nation was in trouble. They were a very loose republic, so you've got very powerful states, and they have banded together. They have hired an army, and here is George Washington as the head of the army, and they are in an economic disaster right now. Inflation. They were printing their money, which they should. They just started printing their money. In 1777, they started printing continental money. But of course, they still had British money in circulation. A British dollar, for better terms, was worth about $1.25 in continental money, 1777. 4 years later, one British dollar was worth 167 continental dollars. What is that percentage inflation? How much is a lot? Whole bunch of zeros. Whew. And the bulk of the army wasn't even getting the 167-to-1 exchange rate. They hadn't even been paid. And so one of the officers in George Washington's army said to Washington, I've got an idea. First of all, we're in a bunch of economic difficulties, which makes us vulnerable, and the army is not going to be loyal to the republic. Denmark was a republic at that time, and they were crushed by Britain, and there was a couple other examples of a weak republic. And he said, what you need to do is you need to get the loyalty of the army on your side. So you need to go out west and divide up west. Now, west to them was probably like New Jersey or something, I don't know. But there wasn't really that far that they'd already gone. But somewhere out west from where they were, divide up the land and give it to the army, and that will secure their loyalty. And then, as you are loyal to them, you should print more money from the federal government, and then you should declare yourself as sovereign or as king. So you'll have the backing of the army, and that'll strengthen your hold over this republic, and that you need to do that in order to save our nation. And he absolutely refused. He wrote back and he said, I write to you with a mixture of great surprise and astonishment. If you have any regard for your country, concern for yourself, or respect for me, banish these thoughts from your mind and never communicate, as from yourself or anyone else, a sentiment of the like nature. So don't you ever say that again. Don't you ever tell anybody you asked me to be king. I refuse to be king. In fact, George Washington, as we know, decided not to run for a third term, okay? He dropped out as a second term. What I did not know was that he was actually afraid that he would die before his second term was up, because he felt as if he was to die before his second term was up, people would assume that the president was in office for life, and that people would just simply die in office. Praise the Lord, he didn't die, and he stopped at the second term. What do we do when people hand us power? What do we do when people hand us power? Little kids hand us power without even knowing it because they don't have any ability. And so mom has power. Little kids wake up and all their time, all their efforts, everything that they have is the mom's or the dad's to hold. What do we do when we have that power? Now, in the sense of little kids, we should use it wisely, not hand it back. But we should not take advantage of that. We should not use it to, here's an iPad, go do what you want, and I'm going to enjoy the fact that I can send you to do whatever you want right now, and you're not going to question it, and I can feed my own desires. What do we do when people give us power? Boy, I hope that we follow Gideon's example. I wish we could teach this and preach this to every CEO in America. What do you do when you have that ability to take a $100 million bonus and you're hardly paying the secretary minimum wage? I don't think it's the government's job to come in and tell that CEO that he should share his money with the people. I think it's the church's job to beat him over the head when he comes to church. They say, why are you so selfish, man? I don't think it's the government's job to make rules that make the companies care for the vulnerable. I don't think that's the way society should work at all. I think those bosses should be convicted that they're being a bad boss. And they should care for the vulnerable. They should help the weak. They should guide those that are less fortunate. Every CEO, every baseball player, boy, the stories that come out of our professional leagues, these guys have all this talent, zero character, and people fawn over them, and they just take advantage of them over and over and over again. I love what happened with the woman who came to Jesus, and she came to Jesus because her daughter was possessed of a demon, actually. And she came to Jesus and said, Jesus, help. But this woman was not an Israelite. She was outside of that realm. I think she was from Sychar. I can't remember exactly, but she was outside the realm. And he's like, I'm not even going to talk to you. So she kept coming and finally convinced him, please, I need your help. And so he said, you have great faith. And he said this statement, be it unto you even as thou wilt. Be it unto you even as thou wilt. Jesus gave her a blank check. And the very next phrase is, and her daughter was made whole. If God gave me a blank check, who would get the prize? Would I get it or somebody else? If somebody gives me power, who's going to benefit, them or me? I sure hope as leaders we would say, okay, you give me that authority. I am the head of the home, that's right. I'm going to do everything I can to help you. I'm going to do everything I can to support you. I'm going to do everything I can to get you closer to the Lord. In Gideon's instance, he said, you need to have God as your king, and I won't even take the position. In other instances, you do take the power, but you do use it for their benefit. Anybody on a passing last words on this? All right, let's go ahead and stand. We'll be dismissed. Let's sing a song. Let's sing a song. You want to hear me? We were just talking about this, that they have this set for me when I'm talking and not when I'm singing. So if it doesn't sound good, it is there. No. Who's got a song that we can sing? Samuel, what song can we sing? All right. I think I can know the words. All right. Let's try let's get a songbook out. I'll do it. I'll lead. I don't mind that. 268, how firm a foundation. We'll sing one verse of 268. Oh, my goodness. These words are so small. All right, here we go. How firm a foundation, ye saints of the Lord, is laid for your faith in his excellent word. What more can he say than to you he has said? To you who for refuge to Jesus have fled. We got to sing the last verse as our dismissal. The soul that on Jesus hath leaned for repose, I will not desert to his foes. That soul, though all hell should endeavor to shake, never, no, never forsake. You are dismissed.